Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of From a Certain Point Askew. This is the official podcast of the Fallen Empire. If you did not know that, welcome, you evil scoundrels. Okay, so I am the Angry Ginger, one of the hosts of this show, From a Certain Point Askew. And with me across the table is my co-host, Neighbor Cole.
Hello, thank you, Jason. Thank you for having me, and thanks for bringing me in on this all Star Wars podcast.
Let's go with this real quick. I'll ask the both of you. If you had to choose dark side or light side, what's your side?
Light side.
Light side. Okay, so you're a good guy. And then Matt over in Portland on the Tatooine official satellite screen.
That's right.
Yep.
Thanks for having me as well. I think I gotta favor the light side too. I generally am a fairly nice guy, I think. So I think I might go that route. There's certainly some leanings, some dark leanings at times, but I think in the end, I'm gonna be sticking with the light side.
So
we need to.
You've been tempted. You've just never crossed over.
For sure.
Yeah.
Many times.
We should get Matt in on is there some technology where he can come in as like a hologram?
Ooh, that'd be nice.
Like, you know how they
then
talk?
he could actually sort of, not really, but actually be in studio.
Right. Now I'm going to ask you guys both real quick.
Yeah.
You got to answer, what would you think Courtney would choose, and how do you feel Neil would choose, Matt?
Oh, Neil would be dark side 100%.
So.
Neil, and just for those who don't know, Neil is the co-host of my other show, Reasons Are Debatable. And I think, and Courtney, who was on with you guys on 7 Days a Geek, I think he would be a double agent.
Yeah.
I feel like Courtney would just be lost, walking around the universe.
Well, he'd be a mercenary. He would be lost.
I was going to say, let's be real. First of all, he doesn't even know what the Force is. I mean, he's sensitive, but not Force sensitive. Well, we can't even talk shit about him. He doesn't even know Star Wars, so he's not going to listen to this.
And there really isn't a Star. Imagine the wheelchair technology though in the Star Wars universe.
He'd just have the Palpatine floating thing.
He'd be a thrusters.
You know? Yeah.
He'd just be in the back, like making fun of people.
All right. Yeah. It's like, I saw Guido get shot last week. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
Greedo,
What about
yeah.
you? What about you, Jay? Dark or light?
Racial slur.
First racial slur.
I would go light, but I do have like an asphyxiation for launching lightning out of my fingertips when my kids are bad. So there'd be at least like a little zap, like a little, move your ass.
Hey, Ray shot that shit.
That's true.
So it's possible.
There is I would always say I'd want to be light, but they're so cool. But they're such like ass kisses sometimes too. You know that? Like they're always just we're so good, and we know we're so good. And
well, it's a religion.
I know, I get it, but then once in a while you just want to be like, come on, just let loose and
right.
Just take some of that aggression out on one of these.
Well, that's the problem. It's sort of. Oh, I don't want to get too deep into religion. I was gonna say. I mean, sometimes they're not allowed to have love. And there's an issue with that.
a priesthood of sorts.
Yeah, right. If they, I think they need to let go of that seed.
Yeah. Well, in priesthood, we know where that can lead at times. Oh God, did we just lose our Catholic
That's
listeners?
what I'm saying. I thought I'd not go there, but you brought it there.
Didn't we just say it?
We're not going to talk about Padawans.
No religion, no politics, and we're already breaking our rule like first episode.
Well, then we can't even talk about the first 3 movies, the prequels, if we can't talk politics.
Good point. Good point.
Okay, so this show, we're still trying to figure it out, so bear with us, listeners, but the idea here is for us to cover the first 3 episodes of Mandalorian. Okay, so we've all watched The Mandalorian. Obviously, we're 9 months or almost a year out from the initial viewing. We've geeked out about this a couple of times. The first 3 episodes have been discussed, but after that, we're sort of, it'll be a newer realm. I'll be excited. I mean, obviously, we know what happens, but that'll be the difference between this discussion and if you guys stick with us as a listener, we get into season 2, as we're doing weekly breakdowns. There'll be much more speculation, what we liked, what we hoped for. The excitement will be there. So maybe we'll have a little bit of that missing, but I think we're all professional podcasters enough, so we'll keep that going. Like, what's going to happen next? Tune in.
Well, you've already listened to our discussion of the making of,
yes.
So this is an extension of that. So we will kind of touch on some of the look and feel and different elements of the show, but really get into more of a detailed breakdown of the episodes that I'm sure all of you are listening have already watched.
Yeah, and it'll be a good reminder for you too, kind of like a recap for when season 2 comes out.
Yes.
So you'll be able to kind of go through, hear our thoughts. We'll give you some of the tidbits of information tying in from the making of stuff, and we'll see where we land on this. But it'd be a perfect little recap for you for season 2 if you want to listen. If you need a purpose for listening.
That's right. If you're in your car and you're like, man, I'm excited for The Mandalorian season 2, what could I do to keep me entertained until that comes? Well, keep listening.
And to remind myself of what happened.
Well, yeah, and for me, I hadn't watched the episodes recently until we kind of were gearing up for this, so it was good to jump back in and get that feel again for the show, and also to just remind myself that there's certain things you miss each time when you watch, that you pick up later. So there's definitely some details. There's one in particular I can think of that we'll get into eventually that I don't think I necessarily caught that line of dialogue the first time.
There was quite a few lines of dialogue this time, and this show actually, more so than most, I think. First of all, I don't do a lot of repeat viewings on things because I don't have the time. But I've done so many repeat viewings on this, and even this time, maybe I had my ear tuned a little bit differently because I know we were going to be discussing the show. But yes, there was the two things that stand out to me was the conversation when he first meets the client. There's quite a few lines of dialogue in that, and even when he meets Grief Karga the first time, Beef Cargo, whatever we want to call him.
I can't wait. It's going to be different every time.
Beefaroni Cargo.
I will say, like, from a person who I'm obsessed with screenwriting and the formula and setup and information. There are so many little lines of dialogue that pay off later on in this. I will say this is almost a perfect pilot.
Yeah, well, and another thing that I think I just read something about this recently where somebody was talking about how to handle season 2 and the fact that one of the reasons why season 1 was so successful is because it was an offshoot. It was a familiar place, but an offshoot. And so if you weren't some diehard Star Wars fan, you didn't feel like daunted trying to come in here and catch up. Right. As much as people who are fans like we are, like caught all these references and Easter eggs everywhere. Even if you didn't catch all those references, you still enjoyed the show as something new because it didn't rely on you having to have all this previous knowledge.
Right.
Yeah, that's like, to that point, it's almost perfectly done in that aspect. Whereas like your casual, never seen Star Wars before viewer could pick it up and run with it and be like, wow, this is a cool concept. I mean, I don't necessarily know what half of this backstory is or who this guy is or a lot of the history of this, but it kind of would prompt them to go in and explore, go down the Star Wars rabbit hole.
And it's comfortable enough creating its own mythology right away. Like there's these little elements right away where you're like, oh, what is this tied to? Like they meant to Krill mentions your descendants used to ride the great mythosaur.
Yeah.
Immediately I'm like, oh yeah, what's the mythosaur? You know, and you Google that and here's a little foreshadowing for when we start discussing it. The mythosaur is actually their symbol.
Yes, I did not realize that until just this last viewing.
Yeah, and if you watch,
I didn't even notice that.
And go back to Solo when Solo first goes into that bar area when he's going to play the cards with
Sabak.
Yes, there's the mythosaur bone structure. They kind of walk across the thing. So yeah, all these little elements tie in. You don't need to know them all, but that's the one thing I really love about Star Wars and this show. We'll geek out about it a lot. There's so much little Easter eggs that are fun to just talk about and get teased, and you don't need to know what they are, but it's just another added element that, I mean, it doesn't make the story better, but like as us purposely, we're doing a podcast, so we enjoy geeking out about those things. So yeah, and there's a lot of that. And you know what, I would say we're like, if there's a level 10 Star Wars geek, I'm gonna put us at like a strong 5.
Oh,
does that sound fair?
You're cutting your legs out from underneath.
Well, I did say 40%.
Easy 7. Easy 7.
Wow. Okay.
So if you got 10, if you go to take a Star Wars quiz online, out of 10, if it's a tough quiz, I bet you get 7 out of 10.
Between the three of us.
Yeah.
We're collectively a 7.
Yeah. Collective 7.
Welcome to the Star Wars Hive Mind podcast.
The Hive Mind, yeah. Ender's Game-esque.
Okay, so let's get into this. Let's talk a little bit about the first episode.
So episode 1, it was called Chapter 1, The Mandalorian. It was directed by Filoni, written by Favreau. It was released on November of 2019. So did you guys catch on? Now, this might be going into episode 2 a little bit, but...
we can't allow that.
Okay, well...
one at a time.
Give me a pass, please.
Okay.
They bring the Baby Yoda to... He brings them into the... to the client, right? Mm-hmm. And they're like, 3. Oh, thank God it's alive. But like, what did you gave an order to bring it back dead or alive? But they were like,
the client didn't care. It was the doctor that wanted it alive. Yeah. Pershing, yes.
Right. So why the dual orders? You know what I mean? Like, why?
Well, that's the whole thing. Like, who's the client working for, right? Like, where's his orders coming from? Because there's definitely a little bit of Pershing and the client, who we don't know his name, played by Werner Herzog, really have a different feel on this. Like there's the client is cold, really. There's what, and we still, I guess, we still don't know what the purpose of finding the Baby Yoda is, bringing it in, and what they want from it. But the Doctor definitely has different feelings on this, which we'll get to.
I feel like it was a force extraction, some sort of force extraction, like getting his powers and understanding his midichlorians. Yeah, correct.
There is a line in episode 3 when we'll get there that I did not catch the first couple times I watched it that kind of alluded to that.
Okay. So there's
but to start with first, like that. What was that guy's name? Mithral. When they go into that bar at the very beginning, which by the way, the first thing you see is him looking at that fob.
Yep.
And my first thought was, how accurate are those things?
So I mean, we've looked at this before, and I'm like, with the technology they show you in all these Star Wars movies, and all they've got is this little beep, 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 as he swings it around. He's like, oh, I must be close. But then later on, he, a little touch button on his little Mando armor, and he can fucking control Baby Yoda's.
Right.
Crib.
Well, and the other thing that I didn't catch, and I think maybe this is supposed to kind of clarify that a little bit, is when he's trying to get all the information he can to go after the asset, he's like, there's no puck. Correct. So I think the puck has a lot of information.
Yes.
So that, but it always struck me as funny that they're just sitting there like they're on a beach looking with a metal detector.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
what it looks like he's doing. It's like, how do you know where the hell to go? The thing's just beeping at the same rate. That doesn't make any sense.
Maybe everyone's microchipped in the future, and that's just leading them right to it.
There we go.
Yeah.
Bring it into modern days. We're all getting microchipped.
It's almost like the 23andMe, like the thing's cued to the DNA. So it's like it just beeps on the person. Like, oh yeah, we can find this coded alien being.
How hard is your job as a fucking bounty hunter in the future and in the galaxy? They give you this little tracker, and all I got to do is follow this and then bring the thing that I got over here back. Like, that's pretty easy.
Lazy bounty hunters. By the way, it is the past, just so you know.
Bounty hunting is
a long time ago.
Difficult profession. Okay, so let's go. Let's get into this. So obviously we open up, and for us geeks, we can just mention they're in the volume right away. There's Mando sitting there with his beep beep beep, and he finds himself into a bar. I love this scene. I love how he just like strolls in, very Western like, doesn't say shit, walks up to the bar, and he's not gonna take his helmet off to order a drink, but he's smart enough to order a drink and use that as a weapon.
Yeah. Well, I think the drink is technically the bartender's trying to make up so that the fight doesn't happen. So he sends that one down. Yep. But I mean, as fans who came into the A New Hope and seeing the cantina, it's its own little offshoot. It's not a full on like cantina like we've seen before, but it has that similar feel because you see all these characters, all these different looks. Mm-hmm. There's like still shots for a second or two on a character, and you're like, God, that guy or that gal got dressed up for hours and hours and hours for 1 second on screen. Yeah. But that's the depth of how they're trying to create these characters, is to make them practically created characters that you're only going to see one time for a split second just to get that atmosphere.
And I love the homage, like right off the bat. So, the Mando comes rolling in, like bellies up to the bar. Doesn't even look at like the client that he's there to get, like his bounty. But then you get the Obi-Wan and Luke cantina scene where Obi-Wan cuts a motherfucker's arm off,
right?
Because the two guys are bullying him, and those two guys are doing the exact same like posturing, body language, and Mando's just looking straight ahead. And how long into the episode before he even speaks?
He does.
Right?
He just before the title card pops up, after he whoops everyone's ass, the first thing he says, and that's Favreau, you are a pimp. First thing he says, I can bring you in cold, or I can bring you in warm.
Yep.
And that's it.
And then
that's all he says. And Fish Boy's like, oh fuck.
Yeah. So I love the throwback right there. Like we talked about that in the volume episodes we were talking about earlier. I think we may have referenced this before, but I love that. Like, it's not move for move, but it's like, dude, I've seen this before.
Yes,
100%.
I think that's on purpose. There's like George Lucas has talked about that before, where he uses reference for framing and the way he moves a character the same way he moved a previous character. And if you watch videos like Rian Johnson did quite a bit of that, even thematically between Rey and Kylo, and JJ did it with I think different movements with Kylo referencing Han. Like the when like there's several things they tie back. There's things that Anakin does that Luke had done, so father and son type thing. And I think Favreau was very keyed on this and liked to frame things the same way. And whether I think it's almost subconsciously we're picking up on that, right? Like immediately, because I will say the first time watching this again, going through it, I don't think this show would be obviously it's got Star Wars to it, and that makes it boom right there. People are going to tune in, but it's very low budget. Like you watch it, the volume makes everything look gorgeous. Everything, the CGI is great. Like it's not low budget in the sense that it looks bad, but it's very
simplistic.
Yes. A lot of desert shots. Like even when they're in the bar, or when he goes down into the enclave, you called it, where he goes to see the Mandalorian, the woman, the steel maker. The armor, right? You know, it's very, very simple in there. Not a lot of show. So, you know, like they're not throwing tons of money to be like, look, we got Star Wars money. But it makes the show work because it does have that Western samurai feel. And that's really what George Lucas was always going for in the beginning, before the money came in, the toy money, you know?
Well, yeah, because they're out in the middle of nowhere in these rough, raw places. So that's how it should look and feel, and that's how it does feel. Like you said, when you have to do these far-off shots and show a whole village, you don't want to have to build that entire village. So they use the volume. But when he's just walking through the streets, that's one of my favorite things about this show is him and his incredibly slow walking through the streets.
Strolling.
Yep.
It's because like that's one of the things, and I think we talked about this before with Rogue One, is when they're like on Jeddah or whatever that planet is, them walking through those streets, you just get a real feel for that place and that world. And when he's walking through the streets in this city or this town, and then also when he's back, you know, where Beef Cargo is, it helps put you into that world to see just the street scenes and the way people move around and interact, versus just we're just going to cut right to the action.
Right.
You know what I mean? It takes its time. That's one of the great things about this series
and
these series going forward, is that it gives you all this room to take your time to build up these characters instead of like, you know, and I don't want to shit on Rise of Skywalker, but one of the things that was tough with that movie was that it was rushed. Everything was just so fast. They had to get to everything. And in this case, they don't. And so I think some people could find that maybe a little bit boring if they're not totally into the show. But for me, I love it because it's this nice slow build that we have a little bit of room and time to get to know these people.
It was an adjustment watching it the first time. I remember that because I'm like, wow, we're just going to take 5 minutes and watch him walk through the whole city, the town folks, and see the thing on the spicket and the other one crying for it.
That's the thing. It's a 30-minute episode.
Yes.
So you're going to take 5 minutes to do this, and then but it wasn't slow. Like it wasn't a slow watch. It wasn't a slow burn. It was just, I don't know. It fit. Let me ask you guys this. What did you guys get? Like, did you guys get a sense of the hierarchy? Now, this is going to speak. This kind of, I guess, is a good segue into 2 or even 3, I guess, when he gets his armor crafted. There kind of was a little dissension between him and the big man, and then now the armor kind of nonchalantly breaks that up, but she doesn't really do anything specific. What did you guys think of? What are your thoughts on? Is there a hierarchy there? Like, is that armorer the head Mandalorian?
I'm not sure, but I got the idea that there is some type of hierarchy because she's always mentioning like having the crest, or she even says something at some point with your. What is she? He says he needs new armor, and she agrees to it because
one of your station.
Yes.
Yep. She talks
so
about
I think there's an understanding of, okay, you've proven yourself at this point. You're going to be a shiny, glossy, beautiful specimen of a bounty hunter.
Well, I think he's highly prolific as far as what he's delivering. So when he goes out there and does all these bounties and brings back all this stuff, he's bringing in a lot. Right. So I'm sure that's created some of that animosity with some of the other Mandalorians, is that they're like, oh, this guy's pulling in all this money and all these treasures or whatever, and we're not doing quite as much.
Wonder why they're not working. Maybe that's like a nod to socialism.
No, isn't there a tease? They only let them out one at a time or something, right? Because they don't want to be found, so they're hiding.
He's like that. We're the Empire's the reason we got to go out. Stay hidden and go above ground one at a time. But I don't get the sense that they're all just sitting there in the shadows, oiling their armor all night long. I feel like they're still out going and doing missions too.
Mando
Is that
3,
a euphemism?
Can you rub this on my armor, my back? I want
Well, yeah, the one at a time thing is odd because it's like, but you all look different. I mean, in general, you look the same, but you all don't. You don't all have the same look, but you only go out one at a time. I don't know. To me, that seemed odd that that was their way of trying to hide themselves.
Yeah, and he's got like the level 10 armor, like shiny as fuck, the pauldron, the wrist grips, but he doesn't have a jetpack. So all the other Mandos
still
have
gotta
got
get that upgrade. And you know what? This is
That's
what
what
I
I'm
really
trying to
appreciate for
figure
this
out,
show,
right?
and the part of that's the writing, right? Because like as every episode progresses, so does something about the character. So he's just like by the end, he's just like this solid. Nothing's gonna fucking take him down. He's got the jetpack. He's got shiny armor.
Right. It makes
he's got the whistling birds. He's got.
You guys may not.
It's like a video game.
I was gonna say you may or may not get this reference. It's like a World of Warcraft thing. Like he hasn't done the quest to get his jetpack.
Yeah.
But he's got level fucking 20 armor. That's the best shit in the world. But he's kind of walking. He's kind of still a noob because he's walking around with no jetpack. Like, so what the fuck's going on with this guy?
Yeah, no, it definitely has a video game feel, and that's why when you go to the Enclave, I was waiting for the screen to pop up and say, "Would you like to save?" Because that's what it felt like to me.
I want to go back. Okay, so first episode. I want to talk a couple of the first, like when he brings the nonstop talking, blah blah blah. He gets him to the ship. This is the first time we see Mando's gun from the Christmas special. It's the first time ever in the Star Wars universe, and this I wonder how proud of Favreau is of himself of like introducing the toilet into the Star Wars universe.
What do they call it? The vac tube.
The vac tube, yeah.
And something about his. I haven't emptied the something, or you don't want to see this until the thorax of the
molting or something.
And you know what? It's the first time we've ever seen like a mobile carbonite unit on a ship. Like, oh yeah, I'll just spray you down and put you on the shelf right here.
I thought Horatio Sands, who played the guy, did such a great job of being just so annoying and so nervous and just constantly he just would not shut up, and it was such a contrast to Mando because he's not saying a damn word. He's very cautious with his words, but it's interesting that he's just going on and on and on and on and on. And it was cool to see inside of that ship right away. You get a feel of like where this guy lives. Because it's like a camper van. He's got a bathroom. He's got his guns. He's got a kitchenette. He's got a dishwasher. No, but he's got it's everything is contained in that space. Like that is where he lives and that's where he operates.
Do you think Favreau is secretly like a super fan of Spaceballs? He's like, I really love the Winnebago.
Exactly. That's what it felt like a little bit. A little more like sleek and slick looking, but yes, definitely a functional ship.
Yeah. Okay, so like I spoke about this being a perfect pilot. So we get the cold open. He goes in there, whoops some ass. He gets his. We know he's a bounty hunter, so he gets his bounty, freezes him, ends up back on the planet. We never see what happens to him.
By the way,
yeah,
a Life Day reference.
Yes.
Right. Which I thought was funny.
Yeah,
just a quick side note. Did you see? And this is a bit of a newsy item. Did you see that they're going to do a Lego Star Wars thing on November 17th about that?
Yep.
Oh my God, that's so funny. I just saw that today.
Okay. Yeah, a Lego holiday special with, but it's got Rey, Finn, Chewbacca. I think we're in the screenshot they released. They haven't released a trailer or anything yet. So hey, maybe 2 new trailers coming up sometime in the show.
A Lego trailer.
Or depending on if it's released before this episode, maybe we've already talked about it.
That's probably true at this point.
Cover our bases either way.
So this is where we first meet Beef Cargo, and
Grief Cargo.
Yep, this is where we find out about the puck and the thing, and he wants another job right away, and he says, this is I've got a really good job for you, but there's no puck, so you've got to actually eye to eye. You got to meet the client and discuss with him the terms. So we're like, ooh, what's going on here? This is something new for the Mandalorian.
And right off the bat, you know Carl Weathers.
Yes.
It looks like Carl Weathers. It doesn't, you know what I mean? It's hard. It takes a bit of an effort to try to get into him being a character a little bit, just because it's him. There's no alteration.
Right.
And he talks the same way. Mm-hmm. However, you're immediately put in a position of like, how much do I like and trust this guy?
Yes,
because you're not sure exactly what his motives are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then he finds out later on that he gave out like 1,000 of those tracker fobs, right? How many fobs did you give out?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I gave everyone. I gave them to everyone. I needed this to come through.
You're not special.
Yeah, right.
No.
I like it when he sends the other the bounty hunter packing. He's like, that sounds like it's like not my problem. Get the fuck out of here. He sends him down the road, and then
I totally forgot about that.
Mando comes walking in. He's like the bruiser for the mob there. So that's what I thought.
But then he goes to meet the client. And that eyeball pops out. And again, it's just full of Easter eggs.
Yes.
Easter eggs everywhere. Just like Jabba's palace with that little, it talks the same and all that kind of stuff. And this is where we first meet Werner Herzog, who I absolutely love in this season.
I do.
Especially when we get to episode, I think it's 7. Mm-hmm. I can't wait to talk about that because he has some lines that are so fucking funny that I'm looking forward to talking about. But it was an interesting scene because he walks in, you immediately see the stormtroopers, and it kind of changes the vibe. He's like, "Holy shit, what's going on here?"
Well, even we are, and then you see like the way the armor's worn down, and
they're all dirty and rusty.
Yeah, and you know they're at this point we've already known that the Empire no longer exists, right? So we're 5 years after that. So they're basically what, like muscle for hire.
Yeah, right. I mean, or something. We're still trying to figure that out.
Right.
You know, how exactly are they organized? But clearly, they don't have the budget maybe that they had before because they are looking dirty.
Can't afford stormtrooper wax.
No. And then we also meet the creepy scientist, Pershing.
See, do you find him creepy? I don't. I find him to be.
I guess not creepy, more nervous.
Yeah, nervous, sure, but I mean the client's creepy. Like he is stone cold. Like this is what I want. And then this is where we find out, like, okay, so I can give you the destination, the age, and I love he's like, I can't give you the whole queue number or whatever it is. I can only give you the last 4 digits. And Amanda's like, the age? So then right away we're like, okay, so we're going after a 50-year-old being, not ever expecting the surprise ending that we're going to get.
No, and when we get there in a second, it was so surprising that none of that had leaked.
Right.
And to the point where when you and I talked about it, I knew you hadn't seen it yet, and I just was like, oh yeah, it's kind of a cool at the end. I didn't really say anything, and you're like, kind of cool,
right? Well, because you messaged me, and I think you had what's it launch at like 3 or 4 a.m.
Well, yeah, it's like midnight my time.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And so I watched every episode of the show at 12:05 a.m. or whatever that Thursday it came out.
And it's usually 7-8 hours later when I'm in at work, and then I get a chance to watch it, and then you're already in bed. So then I'm like waiting to fucking geek out about this thing. I got to wait for you to wake up another few hours before we can finally have the conversation. So yes, so where are we? Where he gets the job, he takes off, and then we end up on another new planet.
Yeah, he ends up getting led to the fortified position by Quill, right? And then
so we first he gets, and this is very reminiscent of the original Star Wars movie, right? Luke and the Sand People. Like this is him with the gun, kind of scanning the thing, and he sees the blurgs, and then boom, he's attacked.
Pops right up in his face. Right. Yeah, that's definitely a callback.
We talk about the. He's always going to that stupid flamethrower that's so ineffective.
Yes.
He uses that on everything.
Yeah.
Like he uses it later on. He uses it I think he uses it once effectively.
On the stormtroopers, it seems to work all right.
Yeah, it seems all right. To burn them alive is fine. But he just uses that stupid freaking flamethrower. That's like his go-to. And I can understand it. You know, it's a big burst of flame, but yeah.
And this is where we meet Quill.
Right. And immediately, I have spoken.
Yeah, he does a little side quest where he's got to tame the blurg, right? He's got to learn to ride the blurg, and
that was the only scene I didn't like in the episode.
Me too.
Because it was the most. I understand they had to do CGI, but it was the most CGI heavy. It looked a little clunky and weird at times, and it was kind of funny because it was like he tries, gets thrown off. You know, Quill gives him like a pep talk, and then all of a sudden he's got it.
Right.
And it was just one of the things where it was like, okay, it's a nitpick. It's not a big deal. But it was the only part of the show where I was like, okay, let's move on.
Piggybacking on that, too, he's like, it's only accessible by blurg. And I'm like, bullshit. Like,
right.
I was watching him on the landscape as they go. I was like, dude, a speeder would have flown right over all that shit.
Yeah, those gaps in the sand aren't, the mountains or whatever, the canyons aren't that big.
It's a long time ago, but their technology in this galaxy is, I'm like, bullshit. You're telling me the only way to get there is by blurg?
Or you're telling me the Razor Crest can't just fly over there and land?
Yeah, why don't we cut this shorter? Make this a little bit easier. Not to mention, then he leaves him without the fucking blurgs. So he's got to walk back anyway. So thanks a lot, Quill.
Yeah, hole in the plot. How does he get out of there? Because he doesn't have a blurg to get back.
So now, yeah. Right, yeah.
He comes back, right? He walks back.
Quill.
Because when you get back to, he comes back to the next episode. But before we get into that, he comes back and the Jawas are like going at his ship.
Right.
So he's on foot though, and he's got the bassinet to his right. That's what it'll be referred to as the
I
bassinet.
fucking. This is where we don't need to spend longer on each episode than the episode is in length, but this is where the show kicks in for us, right? Like he's up on the mountain, he's checking out the area. We see IG 8811, which one you want to call it, kind of just strolling in. He's like, oh great. Bounty hunter. He goes in there and just just starts whooping ass.
So he's a very determined bounty hunter. The IG-11
yes.
is very determined, but he's also very quick to be like, I'm going to self-destruct now.
I love that.
And
stop. No, it's the only time you hear Mando worried.
Right.
I'll initiate self-destruct. Yeah. No.
He's like the back and forth between him and IG-11 is clearly.
It's almost like a buddy cop movie.
Yeah, right. It was pretty funny.
Why do I keep getting noises?
Professionalism on high.
But it was funny when they were overlooking the town, or the little encampment, and it was like, is this a drug cartel scene from like Clear and Present Danger or something? It had that feel to it. We're like, we got to go in and infiltrate and do this. But the fact that then he has to join up with IG-11 reluctantly, because as we learned at the very beginning of this episode, doesn't like droids.
He's not a fan of the droids, and I don't think anyone really in the universe is a fan of the droids.
Doesn't seem that way.
That's true, but they seem to like. I mean, Star Wars wouldn't exist without them.
They got a bad rap somewhere.
But that's another element of me saying it's a perfect plot, because like right away at the beginning he won't accept the speedster with the droid, and all of that's going to come into play. Like there's all these little kernels that Favreau drops in that all come to play as we progress in the series. So yeah, good call on calling that out. And
it's almost like they had a plan the whole time.
But yeah, right.
Whole season.
but he's willing to work with this droid, right? To get to the asset. I mean, he was there first, so they kind of, and they're outmanned and outgunned. So they kind of go in, convinces him not to explode 9 times. He hops on the spinning turret, takes everybody out, and then opens up the door. What a great shot when the door falls and it's just the sunlight and the silhouette of the two of them. Yeah,
that was badass.
I like the interaction between him and IG-11. IG-11's like, clearly I was here first, but they start going into like, he's like, protocol dictates that I will get the commission, and he's like, and then like Mando kind of schools him on the guild law. He's like, well, as of yet, you don't have a asset in hand.
Yes.
And he's like, this is acceptable. Like he starts, computing it. And I was like,
he's very practical about the whole thing.
Yeah,
and
it's voiced by Taika Waititi.
Yes. Now you get the feeling right here that Mando doesn't have all the information, because IG-11 is completely fine just ending this guy's life right here, who we haven't seen yet, and he's like, no, you're not. Now, and this is also where we find out, this guy might have a bit of a conscience and a bit of, like, he's not just a stone cold going to walk in the bar and kill everybody. Because, you hear the gunshot, boom, the metal falls, and then it's just Mando standing there with a very Star Warsian Michelangelo painting where they're touching fingers.
That's right. Yeah. The hands of creation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice reference.
So but you're right. You get a little bit of a taste of him, but I just thought the ending was so great, setting up that whole season, because it was not what I expected. You didn't expect him to become latched onto a child, an asset that he's got to protect.
Mm-hmm.
That just wasn't where I saw it going. I mean, I guess they kind of allude to it, and in retrospect, when you go back and listen to the way they're talking about it,
right,
you can pick up on it. But at the time, you don't know. And so for that to show up. And just obviously took the world by storm. I mean, that Baby Yoda inclusion was I think what really made this thing become such a wide open hit for everybody.
I forget, did they release the first 2 episodes back to back?
No, I think they released one on like a Friday, and then the second
apart.
one the following.
Okay,
no, excuse me. One on a Tuesday, and then the next one was Friday, and then they kept doing every Friday after that.
Yes.
So you did get it a few days after the first one to kind of keep you going.
Yeah, so it went November 12th for the first one, and then the 15th was the the child.
Because I remember there wasn't much of a gap, but I remember even 2 days waiting, 3 days waiting, I'm like, oh my, like, give me more Baby Yoda. Like the internet went on fire
about it. Well, the craze about it, people were like, immediately, when can I get this? When can I get a toy like this?
Yes.
And it became this huge buzz. And I was and we actually went to Disneyland about a week before everything shut down.
Mm-hmm.
We had people in stores telling us, okay, we know that any day they're going to release some of these characters. We don't know when, but when they come out, they're just going to go like hotcakes. Like, people are going to buy that shit up like crazy. And so we didn't end up getting one, but it seemed like everybody was clamoring for that. And that was in March.
Right.
No Baby Yodas had come out yet, and it was 5 months old. So you're like, boy, they maybe should have timed that better.
Well, I think part of it was they there was no way they would have hid the secret had they start mass producing these toys. So it was almost it was a good and a bad thing for Disney, because they really, I would say they lost a fortune. But that secret, I think that's really, it put people on Disney Plus immediately. I mean, there was a discussion. We talk about this on 7 Days of Geek a lot. Like, I really geek out about the streaming side of thing in the business. But I want to say Disney had said they were hopeful at 25 to 30 million within a year or two, and they're already at 60 million subscribers. And now we know that Mandalorian is the top streaming show, and I think it was consecutively for 9 months. Right? Yeah. It was just like it's brought in viewers. People are excited for season 2. And they really, you think Disney would have like their own mass production toy line somewhere where they're not just like mailing that out to somebody, hey, produce this for us. So they could have like been a little bit more on top of that. But yeah, nobody could get. I finally got one. Took me almost a year, but got Baby Yoda.
Well, yeah, a buddy of mine works for Disney and does a lot of who works with their packaging and stuff for toys and all those different things. And so the timeline is way advanced. So like you said,
right,
I'm sure that somebody like him or whatever would have known about Baby Yoda well in advance because they had to prepare for the packaging for that 18 months in advance. But you're right, they keep it so under lock, all that stuff, that they just don't want those things leaking. And it works out better because of it. Because if we would have got a sniff of Baby Yoda before we knew that season was coming out, they put that in the previews.
Right.
It would have been fine, but it wouldn't have been the cool reveal that you got at the beginning of the show.
Not since I Am Your Father has there been almost this strong of a holy shit moment. Especially in the Star Wars universe, like there's things that they can kind of hold on to or whatever, but for the most part, like especially this day when you promote something, almost everything is in the trailer. There's boom, boom, boom. Look at all the pretty shit. Come watch this, and for them to hold that back, and really that says a lot about Disney having faith in Favloni and the crew and what they were doing, and to let that reveal speak for itself and fucking blow the internet up. It was the smartest marketing they could have done.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like you said, the goal was to attract attention and get people to get on that service. So if you want to get people on that service, then they're going to have to pay for it to see what the Baby Yoda thing is all about. They're just going to see a hashtag on Twitter and go, what the hell does that mean?
They definitely played the long game, played the long cards, and I think it ended up paying off in the long run.
With a lot of it. All right, episode 2?
Name of the episode is The Child, directed by Rick Famuyiwa. Written by John Favreau. Highbrow Fibrow. He eats fiber. He eats fiber and he has a unibrow. And then it was released of November 15th. So Mando's on foot. He comes back and he comes upon the scene of a group of Jawas and their sandcrawler, and they're ravaging his what's the name of his shuttle?
The Razor
Crest. But before that, he gets jumped.
Yeah, so he's strolling back in a rival group of bounty hunters, almost like...
I would like to just point out, because we're doing a podcast, and I don't know the creatures' names that he had to fight, so I looked them up, and they're called the Trandoshians.
We've seen
Bosk is the one we saw that looked like that's one of those people in Empire, I believe.
Right.
Yeah, he was one of the ones that was in a rebel outfit, right?
Right.
A rebel flight suit, and he was standing around, just like leaning up against a pole or whatever. Like he was just chilling with the rest of them, and like in the bounty hunter scene.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I think his toenails were hanging over, and a guy turned around and was like, "Ugh."
Oh, well, no, yeah, it goes from the camera angle from down below into the pit, and it's an Imperial officer, and then he sees his toenails, and he's like, "Rawr." And he looks up and he sees him in this. Oh God, look at this guy! Yep. It was a group of him, right?
Yeah, it was him, and then it was you're talking about the scene with Boba Fett and the IG-88.
Yeah, where they're all the bounty hunter meeting, where the Empire is what are you calling it? Where you send out for services.
Outsourcing.
Yeah. He's outsourcing the Millennium Falcon, trying to get the Millennium Falcon. Yeah.
Hiring some contractors.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that's funny is that so all these boss-looking dudes jump him, and you saw a lot of these guys in the bar where Grief Karga is. I don't know if you noticed that when they go in there, there's like several of them that are in there. But what you realize is, one, these are just more people that have that fob that are out here looking for him. But also, this is your first taste of the fucking disintegrating rifle.
I got that in my notes. Yes.
Oh man, that was crazy.
That's the first time you know what this gun can do. Yep. And there's another
but not
thing.
The clothes.
What?
Just the body.
I know. I love that. And I wanted to okay, because
nothing dead will go. It's similar to the time travel in Terminator.
Nothing dead will go. There you go.
That's what it is. Just takes live matter and eviscerates it.
And you're like, holy shit. And this is like, little baby Yoda's just chilling, like, what the fuck's going on? And this is like, it was almost like he had no choice. Like he was fine, putting up the dukes, but as soon as the guy ran for baby Yoda, it's like evisceration time. See ya.
Did you get the sense that he was just fucking infuriated when he's up there on the hill, like he's just plucking off Jawas with his sniper like Lee Harvey Oswald, just going to town, just like you could just
he was real pissed off.
Yeah, you can't see his face, but just his give it to the actor that's inside that suit. Just his movements, just exaggerating his movements, like he's like motherfucker, ripping open the thing, grabbing a round. I want to know how many rounds he's got for that bad boy and how much the ammunition costs.
That's a good question.
He's got like you could see the bullets on part of his armor there that he's like pulling out and using. But you're right. I think it was one of those where he reacted emotionally instead of just saying maybe because this is a guy who just came from telling IG-11, let's formulate a plan. Not there. He's just like, you motherfuckers.
Like you think
he starts blowing dudes away. Like he could have gone down and probably done more damage if he would have actually gotten down closer, but instead he starts picking them off.
Or go for the sandcrawler. That's what I would have thought, right? Like
that gun's not gonna.
Well, he tries to. He shoots the
even close up. He doesn't.
the exhaust system
Mm-hmm.
on the back when he's chasing it. Then he runs it down and gets on it. So what did you guys think? Overall thoughts. So he's going after his ship parts and he's chasing down the sandcrawler. And then there's probably a good 10-minute, 5-minute
Favreau. Here's what Favreau was doing. He's up one night, fucking eating a donut, writing episode 2, and he's got Batman 66 on a TV in the corner.
Yes,
and he's
100%.
like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna have him fucking scale the sandcrawler like Batman. You know, and
it looks
it in.
exactly like
yes.
that.
Yeah. But thematically, he sticks with Return of the Jedi because it's very much like Jabba's barge. And the whole thing on this, when the Boba Fett lands on the side, and Luke's on the thing, and the window opens, and they, the Jawas keep peeking out, and he just yanks them and throws them, So another thing, we're getting a very close tie to something we've seen before.
You know what? I guess I didn't see that. I didn't catch on to that.
The fact that they're throwing loose parts at him and he just keeps getting hit as he's coming up, it was almost comedy.
Are we all under agreement that these are Jawas? Because there's been speculation that are they the same race? Are they an offshoot? Because Jawas have yellow eyes, and these ones had red.
These have red eyes, and I think you see them also in maybe the town where the guild is. I can't remember, but there's one on the street at one point.
Okay.
And so some people said oh, well, I thought they were only on Tatooine, but obviously they're not, or they're a different type of species, like you said. However, they talk the same, they look the same, they're driving the same truck. I mean, at worst, they're cousins.
Yeah.
Maybe they're a rival Jawa gang.
Could be.
What's the dealership look like that sells sandcrawlers?
Oh man,
I don't know.
That's tough. They probably have a smaller version. Do you want the smaller version?
Yeah,
I want the.
You want the Hummer or the H2?
I refuse to believe that sandcrawler was the sport model because it's so bulky. And it's like
very bulky.
This is the
parallel parking that son of a bitch. Ooh.
Yeah. There's really got to be one per planet. Like this is you buy this on an offshoot something, or like just a large ship, like those delivery trucks that go to mechanics. You need a wrench, they just show up with. You want a sandcrawler? Drop one off. They're off. That's all you get. One per planet.
Sandcrawler food truck.
There you go.
You already got the side. You already got the side panels that open up.
At nighttime, they just show up in town delivering pizzas.
They got big rhinoceros eggs that are cut open already, and just hand them out. People eat the goo out of the inside.
They show up for breakfast.
Suka.
I love that. That was so cute when they kept saying it over and over.
Well, the funny part is, so he has to go back because he gets zapped, and he has to go back and ask Quill for help. So he's like, I'll come and help you, negotiate. So they do that whole negotiation, which is a funny whole scene, and obviously makes you think back to A New Hope.
I do have to mention, because I have some notes, and I think this is a reference point that we have to do here, but while he's Batman 66, this is where he cues in on Yoda's thing, and I'm like, what do you fucking download the app for this thing? Because all of a sudden he's controlling this, and I've nicknamed it. It's called the MFDC. He puts it on autopilot, okay? And what did I call it? It's called the Mobile Defense. What do I call this fucking thing? It's lost in my notes now.
I thought we were gonna call it the bassinet. It's like a little.
The
floating...
Mobile Defense Crib is what I call it. Because it's like this little egg that floats. The top can go down. It seems like it's almost like bulletproof.
It seems like it's almost like a throwback. Now this might be a little bit of a stretch, but the blaster helmet in Empire, right?
Yeah.
Or not in Empire, but in New Hope. Well, with the blast shield down, I can't see a thing. That thing kind of goes like that a little bit.
Yeah, when Yoda's a little worn out, baby Yoda's a little worn out from using his force.
Little nap
that thing just goes down and it just goes into. I want to see does that thing if Mando's not around to protect him, does all of a sudden just guns come out, just start shooting?
Well, and to your point, so he finds this thing when he finds the baby, and I assume it's just like when you get a new garage door opener, you just have to pair it.
There you go.
Just hold down the button long enough and it connects.
Bluetooth technology. Device connected. Okay, got it. Here we go.
But yeah, so he gets Quill. They go back. They try to negotiate, which looks a lot like A New Hope as far as the scene where he's with Uncle Owen and they're talking about the. You know what I mean? It kind of had that same feel where they're. In the end, they're just, they're scavengers and businessmen, these Jawas. And so they're not taking any offense to the fact that he killed 6 of them. They're just like, okay, let's make a deal. We want you to give us something. And so when they agree to do the egg, that's one of my favorite parts is when he's sitting in the little cockpit area.
He's riding shotgun.
And he's riding. He's has to sit on his butt because he can barely fit in there, which is creates this whole imagery of how did he even get in there. And then he's sitting there and they're cruising along and he just looks like he's not having fun. And he looks over and that little Jabba looks at him and goes, Suka. It's like they're like dope fiends. They're like, we're going to get some weed.
Yeah. I'm just waiting for the dice hanging in the mirror.
It's 2 eggs. It's 2 mudhorn eggs.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so the premise is they take him in the sandcrawler to this location where he's got to go.
Again, it's a drop-off point. Like, look, this is as far as we can go. Now you got to walk yourself to the Mudhorn.
And you notice he'd rather take Baby Yoda in the mobile defense bassinet with him instead of leaving him with Quill because he doesn't trust anyone.
Right,
Lando doesn't trust any of them. He's like, if I leave him with these motherfuckers, they're going to kill Quill.
They're going to eat him.
And they're going to eat Baby Yoda or take him or use the bounty. But he doesn't trust
We
anyone.
We did skip over the fact that, like, before he met up with Quill, after he got into the fight with the bounty hunters, he's on the side and he's basically cauterizing a wound. And this is the first time Baby Yoda jumps out of the MFDC and walks over to him. And he starts, you're like, oh my God, is this like guy's force sensitive? And then he's just like, look, little shit, what are you doing out of here? Drops him back in his thing. And so we don't see anything. So this kind of goes into play where you're going with the Mudhorn now.
Yeah, so he gets dropped off with in the sandcrawler, and he's got to go in. We don't know. We haven't even been introduced to the Mudhorn yet.
Correct.
So you see this underground, like burrowed out tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
So he walks down in there, and it's all slimy and disgusting.
You
and
think he'd do like a little research?
He's got his little
maybe
LED
open the
lamp.
iPad up and be like, all right, what's indigenous on this planet? What am I running into?
Right. Maybe it's already like real time.
I'm
being
just gonna walk
uploaded.
into this giant cave.
We'll see how it goes. We're just gonna wing this.
Right, I got a blowtorch on my wrist that apparently works on everyone.
He seemed like he just wanted to get away from the Jawas so fast. He's like, I don't care. I'll make it work. I'll come up with it on the fly.
Send me into anything other than these Jawas. So yeah, he goes down there and next cue the Mudhorn waking up and he gets blown out of the cave.
Yep.
And he lands on his back and his armor's all destroyed.
I love the CGI on this creature. It is fucking so. It looks like it's a real life thing.
So what did you guys think of the Mudhorn fight? So he's battling the Mudhorn. He's going at it.
It's almost like the Mandalorian has never had a fight in his life.
Well, he uses. Yeah, he's using. You know what really would have came in handy? A fucking jetpack.
Yeah.
Well, I think what's interesting with this episode in general is he just gets his ass kicked up and down this entire episode. He's getting beat up. His armor's getting destroyed. This thing just wipes him out almost. But there's a certain point where it happens with this, and it also happens when the blurgs attack him, where he has this total warrior mentality of I'm going to fight, and then in the end, you know what? I'm probably just going to buy it. So like by the time that he feels like he's going to be screwed here, he's just holding up a knife and has his head down. Like, well, I'll accept my fate now.
I mean, he's exhausted all of his bounty hunting options. The flame didn't work. His harpoon thing didn't work. Knuckle to horn didn't work. Like nothing's working on this. And he even takes like a chest blow. And I'm like, look, I know you've got armor on, but come on, holy shit.
Well, yeah, you look like what is the nature? of
Wait a minute.
Got the wind knocked out.
Yeah.
The nature of that armor. It's like it's like armor plating, and then underneath is electronics, like pairing up to the suit. I'm assuming.
I think we had talked about that before. It's almost like it's like those new exoskeleton suits they've made for people, and you put it on and you can lift like 400 pounds like with barely moving. So I'm guessing the suit sort of is the same thing, right? Like it absorbs most of the impact or anything. It makes it somewhat like he just got hit by a baby.
Well, the fact that he takes shots in that all the time,
yes,
and still survives tells you just how strong that stuff is.
Yeah, you almost got to have take a blaster shot to the neck to die in that suit.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's the
have
weak
to hit
points.
flesh.
Weak points in the armor between the creases.
I think we're being a little bit too pedantic, but that's
like
the fun of it.
It's like Legolas from Lord of the Rings. Tells everyone to aim for the neck and the throat.
Okay.
Their armor is weak at the neck.
And we all know a stormshooter can shoot. So,
storm shooter can shoot?
What did I say?
We all know a storm shooter can troop.
40%.
Yep, that's us. That's our mantra.
But we finally get the big reveal with Baby Yoda, which is
right. So he's sacrificed himself to the to the gods of war, to Tempest, and he's on his knees. He's got the little dagger extended, and the blow never comes. And he looks up, and Baby Yoda's fucking force holding this motherfucker. Like with all his strength, and the man.
You stab this fucking thing. I'm about ready to blow an O-ring.
Yeah, the rhino is just like treading air, like trying to trying to walk and getting all pissed off. Baby Yoda passes out into his little bassinet, and the rhino lands on the ground.
The MFDC.
And the Mando quick steps over and gets it in the one spot that apparently
I know, I
kills
was
the
gonna say,
mudhorn.
we need at
the
least
jugular.
we needed a prison shanking, if anything.
Yeah, like,
I mean,
so
there
he's
needed
got
to be
like a
12 good stabs in a mere second. Like one hit and
or
down,
through the eye. So he's got
There
like a
you go.
6-inch blade, and he buries it like 4 inches.
which looks like it was made in prison.
It's like a snake, looking like a snake blade. You know what I mean? Curved.
Mm.
So he buries it like fucking 4 inches in, which is apparently enough to kill this mudhorn.
Yes,
And there you go. Mudhorn collapses, and he wipes the
he dead.
the blood on it. That was my one peccadillo with that fight. Like,
Okay.
he could have killed the mudhorn in a better way.
Right.
I thought.
But it's Star Wars on Disney, so there was no blood. Like a real Mandalorian would have just slit it from ear to ear,
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like,
and then climbed inside it like a tauntaun.
or under the chin. Under the chin and into
Yeah,
the brain or
right.
something, or through the eye or something.
as he's whispering into his ear.
Yeah.
But then he gets the egg,
Gets the egg.
and we see what's inside of it.
That egg gave me OCD. Just seeing that egg just made me fucking want to like
Never
go
eat
take,
yolk again.
make me want to take a bath or just peel it apart or something. There's like strands of wet string hanging out. Like,
Yes.
get this thing away from
Yeah,
me.
it looks
I
like
hate
a
it.
ball of wet yarn.
Yeah, it looked like a testicle.
Right.
And a scrotum.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe you need to do some manscaping, Matt, if that's what your testicles look like.
Well, that's true.
Jeez, oh Pete.
But yeah, I think he's just put off by the fact that he's like, then they just cut this thing open and just start eating this shit. This is what this was all about, was
Yeah.
just this suka. So it's kind of funny.
Is the suka? Is the suka the egg?
The suka's the egg.
I thought they were just like, it was what up?
No. That's
Okay,
the egg.
Okay.
How did you miss that? Like, how are you now just putting that together?
They're literally chanting suka, and it's like
yeah,
the
that's
egg,
true.
the egg.
True. Okay. Wait, hold on. You're saying it like there's a subtitle.
There was.
Oh, I didn't watch some. Oh,
There was a little subtitle.
okay. I
Unbelievable.
might have fast forwarded through some of it this time. I was
That's all right.
it was crunch time to the recording, so I was like, all right, I know you're gonna kill the mudhorn. I know they pour it all over themselves. Get to the next part. And you can only go 10 seconds on Disney Plus. So I'm like 10 second.
Yeah, for sure.
All right,
So then he gets his gear back.
Yep, gets his parts for his Razor Crest.
It's not a Mando. You're right. Which is I'm going to say this now. It's not a Mandalorian episode if you don't have a montage.
Right. Well, before we get there really quickly, interesting point. When they're going back to the ship, they have this very quick exchange, he and Quill, about like, what did you see again? And he's like,
Yes.
I don't really know. And that was something that was interesting to me because, and I think, Jay, you and I talked about this at one point, not everybody necessarily knows what the Force is or has seen it,
Right.
has witnessed it. And so, because to me, I'm like, well, this guy's a Mandalorian. And if you know some of the history there, they had like a war with the Jedi.
Right.
So this is a guy who would have been schooled in his own religion.
Yeah.
So he would probably be aware of that, but maybe it's because he's never actually witnessed it himself, so he didn't know what to expect. And so seeing this thing levitate by this little tiny baby Yoda, he was
True.
like, I don't understand what that is.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's been such a long time since that war that it was kind of lost in
Well,
the
it's been
annals.
5 years since the Empire fell, which is Return of the Jedi. The Mandalorian. Now, I guess we can flash on this because we've seen a couple of flashbacks so far
Yes.
with this kid. Are we led to believe that this is the siege in Mandalore, or is this something else?
I think that's supposed to be the purge,
Yes.
as they call it, and I think that's supposed to happen like around the Clone Wars time
Yes,
frame,
it happens
somewhere in there.
yeah, sometime in the Clone Wars. So we're, I mean,
25 years.
yeah,
I would say, right?
yeah. Which would make the Mandalorian about 30 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe mid-30s. Yeah, something like that. So yeah, I think that's about when.
So
it is.
I mean, you'd think like with the Empire falling and like anybody telling any stories, there would be discussions about the Jedi and Darth Vader and what's been going on. And obviously, Vader is probably not something that nobody's heard of before. He's like the boogeyman of the galaxy. So, but there's a little bit of but I mean, you also got to take into fact that there's a lot of planets in the galaxy, and we're sort of out on the outer rim of things right now, and they're in hiding. So who knows, what Mando did before he put on the armor and decided to go take jobs and where they were. So I mean, there's a lot of backstory, and we obviously have more knowledge than some of these characters do, right?
Right, because as far as knowing that Darth Vader's the big baddie or whatever, you may not know all his force capabilities. You just know he's this big badass who wields a lightsaber, and that's it. So I think just seeing it in person maybe is what threw him off. But I thought it was an interesting conversation.
Well, even to speak about the Mandalorian and the fact that with all the information he has with the travels that he's done, but also Quill, isn't there? There's a discussion that Quill talks about. I don't know if we're there yet. I think it's later on when he says, you can come with me. And he says, no, I've paid my debt. I basically, you kind of are led to believe that he was either in the Clone Wars or had something to do with the Empire at one point.
Yeah, he said, I've done my life of service or something. I've done service. And he's like, now he wants to live free or freer, free-ish, I guess. Right? Yeah.
Now, to give a little backstory to their race, the Quill, the Ugnaughts, right? I mean, they're the ones that work the carbonite thing on Cloud City, yeah. So those are where you kind of see them. You also see them. They're in one of the scenes where C-3PO is going to be burnt, right? When he's on the conveyor belt, aren't they down there doing something? Aren't those Ugnaughts?
Yeah, they're playing keep away from Chewbacca. With
yes,
right.
Okay,
yeah.
so we've seen the Ugnaughts a few times.
But Cloud City is where you see them for sure.
Yep.
That's the memory. So who knows? I don't know if he was in Cloud City or if he was somewhere else. But yeah, he's got some sort of experience.
Right.
So the montage, the A-Team scene.
Yep, they were going to work, and we can do anything if we work together. Like going to town on the Razor Crest.
You're the best around.
Welding things and putting parts together, and yeah, it was a good. I guess I never figured out that was a montage until now. It's pretty good.
And I think we're left with at the end of that episode, what's he going to do? Is he going to actually take this thing back to the client and turn it in, or is he attached to it now and he's not going to do that? That's kind of where they leave you off heading into episode 3.
Yep.
Yeah, so he ends up, where does he repair the ship, and they leave the planet. He leaves the planet with the child, right? They cut to the scene in the cockpit, and then they open back up with the same scene, I believe.
Yeah, come out of hyperspace. Baby Yoda's awake, and this is where he gets adorable with
playing with the ball on the thruster.
I like how you just
episode 3 is called
The Sin, directed by Deborah Chow, written by Jon Favreau. And November 22nd, 2019 was when it was released.
I love that Favreau gets the writing credit. I'm sure like stories done by him and everything, but when you watch the back episode, the making of episodes, we get a really good sense that there's a bit of a writer's room. They've all sort of had a say on both directing their episodes and how things are going to go. So I don't know if there's like with the writers table where they all come up with the ideas how things are going to work, and I'm guessing he comes in with a lot of things. Then there's like a group meeting to flesh it out, and then he probably writes the scripts to it, so he gets the credit. But I think there's more involved than just him.
Well,
I think you're right, but I think he probably wrote the framework for the entire season in advance, which is what he's done now. Like they said, he's even written season 3 already, or he's working on season 3, and so I think he has that entire general arc of the story, and then then they come in and say, oh well, I want to take it this direction or that direction. They tweak as needed.
They put the minutia, the Easter eggs, they kind of flesh it out, the feel of the director and how they want things to go. So yeah, I love Deborah Chow though. I'm excited.
It shows episode 5 and episode 6 written by Filoni on 5, and 6 was by Christopher Yost. So,
okay.
So later on, I mean, he doesn't get every single writing credit on here. So yeah, cut to they're back in the cockpit, and he's heading back to Navarro, which is where the client was at.
The name of the planet. Okay.
Yeah, he's going to get his Beskar bounty out of the little ice cream machine.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
That's right. What's his name? Wilro Hood.
Wilro Hood.
Oh yeah,
that's right. Call back.
He has a little hologram discussion with Grief Karga as well, so we get a little pop up while he's coming back, and basically says, come and take that shit back to the client.
Welcome back. Make sure you get it right to the client.
Let me give him 20%, dog. He's like, drop that shit off.
Well, even when he sits down with him, we'll get to it in a minute. He's just like, I'm rich, bitch.
What is he trying to tell him? He's trying to introduce more parts of the world. Like, go get yourself a rub and tug over on.
I'll take you with me.
That stood out. I did not hear that. Yeah. I did not hear that so clearly the first time. But he says the Twi'lek healing baths, which is basically like, let's go to this brothel and fucking get our rocks off.
The Twi'lek are that's the girl with the long green things from Rebels.
Yes, and another one we'll see later in the season.
The two of them, the brother and sister with the comedian, Bill Burr.
Bill Burr.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Those are Twi'leks.
They could heal. They'll heal what ails you in the spa.
Yeah, you don't even have to pay for the first one.
Technically, we're owed one, but never mind. You kind of get this little breakdown. He goes to drop off Baby Yoda to the client, and they have this little exchange where he goes and gets the Beskar, and then there's this moment where he's like, "What are your plans to do with the child?" And then old boy.
Do you notice immediately his
has to
demeanor changes?
Yep.
The door opens and stormtroopers come in and flank him.
And he has to kind of school him on where Mando, kind of Mando knew the Mandalorian code and the law
because the code of the bounty hunter.
Because he had that confrontation with IG-11 where he schools him on having possession of the package. So then he's like, once this turn of events has happened and things have been exchanged, this has been forgotten about. Like, it doesn't exist, right?
Yep.
And Mando's like, okay, you got me, and kind of just takes his ice cream machine and walks out the door.
Yep. There better be mint chocolate chip in here.
This better be Ben and Jerry's, none of that fucking Hudsonville shit.
There is a massive stack of that Beskar, though. He hit the jackpot.
Yeah, it says 20 bars. He had 20 bars of Beskar steel.
Well, they even say when he sits down, okay, so he goes, we get another montage. They make all of his armor. We know that he doesn't get his insignia yet. He discusses the fact that he did kill the Mudhorn, but it wasn't a good death because he had help from Baby Yoda. So he denies that, but because he's not going to get the insignia piece, there's enough Beskar steel left over. She's like, well, I'm going to make you some morning birds or whistling birds.
Whistling birds.
She's like, these are a rare thing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, what are these? I mean, slowly Favreau's turning this guy into fucking Iron Man. We get that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he gets that, and he comes walking in
well, before that,
yep.
you get a lot more some exposition, I guess, on the nature of the Mandalorians, because that's when the guy voiced by Favreau.
Yep.
They have that whole exchange where he's kind of pissed off. He's like, this he calls him a coward, and they start getting into a scrap, and then the armor has to break that up.
What's the coward line for? It has to be just some past between them, right?
Well, because he's taking the Beskar was stamped with the Imperial logo. So he's saying basically the entire
and the Imperial the Empire was responsible for the
reason why they're hiding underground, the purge and all that other stuff. But I get the sense that Mando, if that turn of events would have continued on, would have lost that fight. Like if you look at when the armor inadvertently breaks it up, mm-hmm. Mando's got his knife under the guy's armpit, mm-hmm. and old boy
jugular
had him right by the throat. I'm like, dude, Mando, you're gonna get your ass kicked. And the dude was like a foot taller than him.
But don't you get the idea? This is definitely an origin story, right? So we're seeing him build up. Not only his armor's getting better and everything, but he's getting better as a fighter. It's almost like when they rebuilt James Bond with Daniel Craig, right? Like Casino Royale, he was not the suave. I've got it all figured out James Bond that we grew up with and loved. He was beaten and bruised and always fucked up. He was always wrong.
It's like Bruce Willis from Die Hard. He's the first beat up super.
Yeah, and we're getting sort of that the everyday bounty hunter.
Yeah, well, and they talk about a lot of the elements. You never remove your helmet, blah blah blah, and then that's when we first hear this is the way.
Yes.
Which they keep going around saying this is the way. It almost sounds like you're at Catholic mass. The Lord be with you and also with you. There's a lot of that feel. It is a religion.
Had a real AA meeting feel to it.
Yeah. But that's all that needs to be said. Dave. That's all that needs to be said, and then they all shut down. They're like, okay, this is the way.
Yep.
Yeah. And we got more flashbacks, like you mentioned, with what looked like those old battle bots or something in there, shooting that place up.
Those are in. Did I see them in Rebels or I see them in Clone Wars? But I can't remember what they're called. But they've been throughout the Star Wars verse before.
Okay.
You also get a little bit of the backstory, and it ties it in too. He's like, remember, please set some aside for the foundlings, right? He references that. Don't forget to give a little bit to the foundlings. And she's like, as it should be. This is the way. She says this is the way again at that point.
Yes.
She also says they're the future.
They're the future. But children are the future.
We're not up to speed on the fact that he is a foundling.
Well, that's why you kind of get that sense of
I thought he said that. Didn't he say it? Okay. I was a foundling?
Okay.
He might have.
I think he might have mentioned that.
But you get that line where he says, be sure to set some aside for the foundlings.
Yes.
And then you get those flashbacks where you see him, he's in the dungeon, the Twister.
Yeah.
I keep thinking of Twister. He's like, they're down there in their little storage,
the bunker.
Yeah,
you're just watching the doors rattle.
And it keeps going a little further each time. So this time you actually see that box standing over him.
Yep.
And then he comes out of it. So you haven't got the full story yet, because you do get more of that flashback later.
I think you end up in episode 4 or 5, you end up getting the full story that he was, you could piece it together.
Right, you already know something something's going on, yeah.
Right.
what happened to the old Mando?
He's got
So he goes back to the bar and
past.
Karga's showing off his Beskar. Like, look at me, man.
Flesh and Beskar.
And this
Well,
is
which
where
is important because we
Yes.
see where he's put it.
Yep.
And that comes into play
Yes,
later.
and he also like right away because back up to episode 2 when he fights the Trodashians and he sees the fob on the ground and he's like, "What's going on?" And he asked the client about it. So now he's like, "Look, Beef, I got beef with you, Beef Cargo." So he's like, "Yeah, I gave him to everybody." And then I'm rich, bitch. Fucking go get yourself a drink. Wake up in hypersleep, and you'll forget all about the cargo, the child.
But Mando was having none of it. He wants his next assignment. He wants to fucking forget this last one. He wants to get off the planet. So he gets his new puck, takes off to go get some sort of emperor's son or whatever the hell it was. And
he was royalty. He was going to the oceans of. I feel like this was a tease for Star Wars. What was Kenrick's name? It was Kenrick, but you go into the oceans of. It was almost Kenrick's name from Rogue One.
Oh, okay. I didn't catch that.
Okay.
So he gets in the ship and he gets a little flashback or a memento. He sees his little throttle stick ball rolling around, and it kind of thinks to himself. He has a moment of reflection.
I miss that little dude.
Oh, that little guy's gonna get torn apart by these mercenaries. So he screws his little ball back on and about faces and starts fucking marching towards
How come nobody? This just like visually came to my head. How come nobody has photoshopped like the fucking the Hangover with the Mandalorian in the elevator with those guys with Baby Yoda and that carrier on his chest?
That would be good. I'm actually surprised. It probably exists somewhere.
Listeners, if you'd like some to start up a contest,
We need some
Sounds like a good
episode
t-shirt.
art.
We'll have merch. on the
There's
show,
a
just so you
T-shirt
know.
for sure, man.
do our best. That could
So
be.
yeah,
where
then
we
he
take
goes and
off.
stakes out, right? He stakes out. He's gonna go get
So
him.
back to the wuda thing that comes out of the fucking wall, right? The little bot. It pops out, and he does what everybody's wanted to do since the first time you've seen it. Rip that fucking ball off of the face of that droid, just rips it apart, does the about face and walks out, and immediately 2 stormtroopers come out, like, okay, there's an alarm system, set up or whatever, and the blast doors open and the stormtroopers will come out. Mando's long gone.
I love how this shows how good he is at his job. This whole scene, because he goes from I'm going to take off to, well, let's go check out. And you forgot, like, he did a rooftop listen first via the gun. And that's where he hears, I wrote down.
Predator.
Extract the necessary material and be
Thank
done
you.
with it. That's
Yes.
what Werner Herzog says to Pershing.
Yep. And then
And
Pershing,
so that makes
Pershing
you
says
realize,
that
okay,
wasn't,
so they're after something in the child. So that's why the dead, I guess, could have worked still, because they're extracting whatever it is.
So-
but it makes you think, what is this material?
Let's speculate for a minute. We haven't done much
Okay.
speculating with this, and really, we won't get the answers, at least in the season as well. Like, what are they? I mean, they have to be aware. They have to be aware that this creature exists, that he is force sensitive, and we're also under the assumption at this time there are no Jedis, right? Order 66 has happened. There's nobody. This is Luke is the only one that they're aware of, and he's
think
long
Luke
since
is the only
fucking
one,
hit
yeah.
Acha 2, and nobody else is around, right? So if they know this guy's force sensitive, so all of a sudden, oh, these things are popping up again. Can you extract the metachlorians, right? That's logically the only thing I can think of.
So yeah, this is after the Empire's fallen, but before the rise of the New Order, right?
Right.
So
yeah.
they're in
Correct.
that little.
So Rey's not born yet.
Yeah, they're in that little subspace, whatever you'd call it.
Mhm.
5 years after Empire. So yeah,
Is she? What? How many?
No,
years?
I think you're right, because wasn't there like a 30-year gap between Jedi and Force Awakens?
I think it's 30 years. Yeah.
sounds about right.
Because the fall of
Jakku.
Yeah, it wasn't there. There was the fall of Jakku, or the ships that fall from the Empire. I think those were quite a few years before.
Jakku, that Jakku battle happens shortly after Jedi.
Right. Yeah, because that's the fall of the Empire.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why does everyone want to go back to Jakku?
I don't know. It's a good hiding spot.
I got a homage to Predator, right? He gets the infrared scope out,
Yes.
and zooms through the wall, and he can also apparently listen in.
Mhm.
So he's listening to that conversation. He also has like a little C4 charge that we get introduced to. So he goes to the back alley,
Yeah.
puts a charge on the door to blast into the cargo room, right? And where was that when he was fighting the Mudhorn, right? Like the Mudhorn like nails him in the chest, slapped that fucking C4 charge on his
For
eyelid.
every time you get new armor, you get one free C4 package.
That's a toss.
It's like a perk.
Exactly.
For, like, with the oil change, you get a free windshield washer refill.
But apparently you get all the flamethrower you want because he keeps using that.
Yeah.
No, but one of the things that's interesting about that too, I just thought of, is that in Star Wars Rebels, Sabine, who's of Mandalorian descent,
Yes.
she's a big explosives person, so she's always throwing those little things around and blowing shit up. So maybe it has something, kind of more of a tie into the Mandalorians.
When she's not tagging a wall, she's blowing it up.
Exactly, it's true.
But this is where he goes straight up John Wick.
Yeah, lead intro into him. He breaks into the fortress, does some basically ends up killing all the fucking stormtroopers on the inside. He does it one-handed at one point after he saves Baby
After
Yoda.
he's holding the baby.
Yeah, so he's got the child, he's got the package, and he's fighting off stormtroopers one-handed and just wrecking face. And comes to the confrontation where he's surrounded by 4 of them.
Now, where is the client in all of this?
So the client, he is overhearing in that conversation, but then by the time he goes in there, the doctor's still there, the scientist is still there,
Right.
but the client is gone. So we're meant to believe, I guess, that he took off because he said something about, I can't remember what he said after. Well, he said to be done with it, but I think he said one more line and then kind of left him to do whatever he was going to do.
Maybe just hop.
So this is, you kind of missed it. So yeah, he's still taking out stormtroopers. At some point, he walks in and we see Pershing, with the child. We think the child's dead. He's like, he's not, but we see the big
floating
droid.
hypodermic needle ball.
That's gonna fucking go after Leia, and you're gonna tell the truth. And so there's another Easter egg, but he grabs it. He's analyzing the baby.
Well, the scientist is like, I was not going to hurt it. I just kept it alive. Like, he is definitely he's all about the science. He is not necessarily he's a contractor.
And we've discussed this before, and I never really bothered to look into this any more than have the discussion. But the emblem on his arm when he's ducking down hiding, that's the same as Kenrick has for his science group or whatever in Rogue One, right?
Oh, okay. I didn't look at that. So the group that Mads Mikkelsen is part of, the Death Star creators or whatever.
Yeah, I think that was the same, like the jumper suit, the logo on the. I think it is. We'll have to look into that.
Scientist is like the Joseph Mengele of the science community, right? He's the evil Nazi scientist from the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Right? He's like, I'm not.
He's not in on the cause.
Yeah,
he's just there for the science.
I'm not a bad guy here. I'm just extracting some DNA from an innocent child.
I'm just doing horrible things to people, but really I'm not on the cause at all.
I don't necessarily agree with what I'm doing, but I'm just doing it because you give me free reign.
Nothing else is happening right now in the galaxy.
Yeah. So he ends up sparing the scientist, doesn't end up killing him, confronts all the stormtroopers, and then you get to see the whistling needles or arrows or what is it?
The whispering bird.
Whistling bird.
He needs to get more of those. Those things are awesome.
I want to say he didn't use all of them. It looked like he had like 16 of them in there, and only 4 of them deployed.
Okay.
Well, did you hear her say, like,
they're
use
very
them wisely?
rare.
And then he fucking uses them within like 2
Yeah,
hours
right?
of leaving.
Like,
Like, you blew your wad already, man.
He's excited.
He's going to come out with a bunch of different stuff later on in like the episodes, like cool gadgets and stuff, or later on in the season.
He's just going to be Inspector Gadget by season 5.
Why didn't you use this when you were fighting these guys, or why didn't you use this there? I mean,
that's part of the show, though. You got to kind of it's fun to like show something new all the time, but I get it if you go back. So we're just going to have to take it as there's always upgrades.
Always upgrades. Always the possibility
Right.
for the upgrade. So cut to he escapes the laboratory.
And immediately the fobs start going off.
The fobs all
And
start
now here's
crazy.
the interesting thing. Who put the bounty out on him? Because when they're panning across the cantina there where Beef Cargo's always giving out shit, his fob is going off.
Right.
So, and he even looks like, oh, shit.
So I got a feeling like either real time. What's the client? What's his name? I can't remember his name.
It's just a client.
Right. So I think he either gets some sort of like alert on his cell phone, like, oh, your factory or your little your science lair has been infiltrated.
Okay.
The security system sends him a code, and AET calls him and says, "Hey, listen, you've got a break in. Should we dispatch Imperial stormtroopers to your area?"
There we go.
So he's like, okay, well now I need to get this baby back. So he sends out the fob code, and there you go.
So we're just on the impression the client had something to do with putting
Client
that
has
out.
some sort of
I
override.
think so.
Yeah,
I think
and he
so.
definitely,
And-
we're under the impression he's if he's not the money man, he certainly has the money at his power to make these big things happen.
Right. And then he's surrounded. He's walking down that street, and Grief comes up and is like, "We got you surrounded. Give us the child, and we'll let you walk away." And
Maybe
he's trying to figure out how the hell he's going to get out of that. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, we get one hell of a fucking bounty hunter shootout. Like at first, it's the standoff, him against the town. Everyone, he fights his way. He's trapped.
Buys himself some time.
There's this moment between, I'm like, if they would have locked eyes any longer, I'd have thought there was going to be some type of like makeout session between Baby Yoda and the fucking bounty hunter, because it was just like, oh, and then you just see the flashes over over the top of him. And
well, but didn't you think Yoda was going to do something?
Well, I mean, they held on it for so long. I was like, something's going to happen. Holy shit.
Yeah. Right. I figured he was going to have to act again. I didn't know how the hell else he was going to get out of it. I actually didn't see his crew come and help him. I didn't expect that. So I thought that was one of the coolest scenes in the first season, was watching those guys fly in and land and just ripping shit up and essentially having his back.
Which is something that we've seen in some of the animation stuff, but live action, this was all brand new.
Yeah, and I think Deborah Chow did this one. I think she talked about how difficult it was to kind of bring them in on wires or whatever, have them land and continue to fight the whole time and shoot the whole time. It's kind of tricky to do that.
All of the explosives they had on hand. We couldn't get any more.
So you get the sense that this is the resurgence of the Mandalorians, right? Like, so they've been in this this.
They're definitely, now people are aware that they're around. Sure,
well, they were under this edict of one at a time going to the surface. You guys are supposed to be like almost in hiding,
right?
But then they're like, my presumption is that they all had fobs and their fobs went off, and they pull up their pucks and they see who the bounty is.
Oh,
and oh shit, it's one of our own.
Very true.
And then they Mandalorian team huddle. Okay, guys, what are we going to do here? And they all put their hand in the middle and go save him. And
well,
they go jump out.
Here's my plan. We've all got jetpacks except for him, so we'll just come in and save him.
Let's just go flaunt our jetpacks in this bitch's face before he dies. Like,
sure, he's shiny, but he can't fly.
Yeah, but you see him fly in, and then they got the dual fucking blasters just shooting in, and like, oh, you're
then
like,
he comes in. Favreau's big fatty guy comes in with the fucking Terminator gun.
He's got the Gatling, the Gatling blaster.
Yep.
Yeah, they kind of make their little amends there. Like, there was another "this is the way" comment, and it's like, we got him. You get out of here. And so, yeah, they certainly, there was a line that they had to cross to do that, because they were no longer, at that point, they just revealed themselves completely.
The Mando even says to him, basically, you blew your cover. What are we going to do? And he's like, well, we'll move on or whatever, but this is the way.
Moving the Enclave, right?
Yep, yeah.
They're going to move the Enclave to another planet or another system maybe, but I got the foreboding aspect that they're kind of like, not only are they giving themselves their own death sentence by revealing themselves, but they're also putting code above profit, code above.
Yes, they're almost like samurais.
Yeah, code of the Brotherhood of the Mandalorian. One of your own is in trouble. This goes up again, even if this is a death sentence to the entire enclave of this. And who knows? Maybe there's more enclaves all across the galaxy, and the Mandalorians are not as depleted as they think. But I got the sense that they were really signing their own death warrant by coming out and revealing themselves like that.
Well, that's one of the fun things about this show, is we really don't have a lot of backstory on the history of the Mandalorians.
Well, I mean, like we've talked about, everything that we know is from Clone Wars or Star Wars Rebels. Like that's the bulk of the knowledge on that whole, or unless you read the books, I guess, which I have not, again, read any of those books.
Nothing with the Mandalorians.
No, okay. But there's a lot of information in the Clone Wars and then again in Rebels that talks all about how this happens, because that's how I became aware of the Darksaber, which we'll get into later.
Right. Yeah. So these are the 3 episodes. And it really does sort of bookend itself, right? Like he flies off. He gets the salute from the guy again, and that's where he's like,
a little over the top.
I really need to get one of those jetpacks. And you're like, oh, okay. So far, you foreshadowed everything else. I wonder when the jetpack's going to come into play. But
it's like a scene from Rocket Man. Yeah. Good job, son.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for where's the fucking silhouette of a flag behind him? Like, but it really closes off this portion of the story. So now we're left like, what happens next? Where is he going with Baby Yoda? He has no home to go to. He's like, he's broke up the band because now they've all got to go run in hiding as well. Now the whole fucking universe is after him because he's got this asset. So we're left to be like, okay, where do we go? And that's what we'll pick up next week with 2 more episodes 4 and 5. Correct?
So 4, 5, and 6.
4, 5, and 6. Okay.
We alluded to the placing of the Beskar on beef cargo. And so
true.
He has a little confrontation in the Hall of the Razor Crest.
Do you think that was because there seemed to be a loyalty thing there? There's one thing I'm getting from beef cargo, when he was sitting down with him earlier in the episode, you kind of get the idea that before he like had this power, everything, he reminds me of a scoundrel. Like he really is almost like a Lando or a Han Solo type character who now sort of like heads this thing up. So he's got a lot of respect for these bounty hunters and what they do, and there's almost like a loyalty code that he sort of discusses. And even when they're in the bowels here of the Razor Crest, when something is said, it doesn't seem, because he could have just pulled his gun out and shot him, but instead he like lets the carbonite spray go. He creates the fog, and then he's not a stormtrooper, right? I mean, this man can shoot, and he shoots the one spot he knows. I think he knows that the Beskar steel is in. Right,
and I think you and I talked too about how it looks like Greef could have hit him, could have shot the Mandalorian earlier in that episode when there's that shootout, and kind of purposely doesn't.
Right,
you know, he shoots the droid to stop the little speeder that he's on, but that's it. And so to me, it seems like he has some sort of conscience, but is obviously meant to be more of the scoundrel, money grabbing type of guy. But there is something in the back of his mind that prevents him from being all bad. And you see that eventually as the season goes on, especially you see that come up big time in like an episode, whatever that is, 6 or 7.
You get the Han Solo character dilemma. Like he's not in just for the profits, right? Like,
and that's what makes the interesting characters. It's not all black or white. There's a lot of gray area with these characters, you know. So you don't know who to trust or how to trust them. And you know, this speculation pays off a little bit more later on. We'll discuss a later episode with them. But yeah, so far this is where we're left with thinking. So, anything else? Anybody want to ask anything else?
Closing thoughts? Anyone? That's your episode 1, 2, and 3, chapters 1, 2, and 3 in a nutshell, and as in detailed as we could get, I suppose.
Well, we could have got more detailed had we done just an episode at a time. Well, we could kill 60 minutes and relive the whole episode for you, but you could have just went to Disney Plus and watched it too.
By second.
So yeah, which my notes, if you look, we didn't hit half of it, which is a good thing. You guys kept things moving because, like, I just want to. Oh, what about this part? What about this?
I did appreciate you
remember
pausing
that
the
one
show
time?
to name the carrier, the bassinet. That was a good move.
You're welcome. The MFDC.
MFDC, baby.
So yeah, next week is episodes 4, 5, and 6. I was going to say, again, you can find our show on Twitter is FACPA Pod. I'm sorry that worked out that way, but it's the way I had to do it. And you can also send email to facpapod@gmail.com if you want to reach out to the show.
Yeah, if you have any recommendations, or hey, if you want to be the first one to review us on iTunes or something like that,
that'd be great.
Then shoot us an email. Let us know that you did. Find us on Twitter and say it. We'll read the reviews on the next show. Also, if you have any ideas of something you'd like to introduce us to, because like we're not well versed in the lore of Star Wars, so we're looking for some of that as well. Whether it be particular episodes, or if you think we should just jump into a season of. I'm starting to watch Clone Wars again, so I'll have a little bit of. I've never watched the series as a whole, and I've seen elements of the last few episodes with Ashoka, so I really want to get into those. So I want to devour those. But there's a few of the books that I want to read, like Aftermath. They're written by, his name escapes me. I follow him on Twitter. He wrote. There's a series of books that he wrote that take place before the trilogy, the new trilogy. Chuck Charles. What's his damn name?
Chuck Wendig.
Chuck Wendig. Yes. So I want to delve into those too. Is there anything else you guys want to make this show? No.
Other than the Photoshop contest, right? We're gonna have Hangover / Star Wars.
I want to see
conglomeration.
I want to see that.
We'll make a T-shirt out of it.
Even if you have to draw it, if you don't know, if you're a decent artist, we'll accept anything better than stick figures.
This is an effort show. Yeah. Just try something. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, what is it? Baby Yoda and a Baby Bjorn.
Yeah.
Is that what they call them?
Is that what they are?
I think they're called. Just
that is a Bjorn.
Chest hammocks or something.
Yeah, okay. Kangaroo pouch.
There we go. All right. This has been from A Certain Point Askew. Thank you for listening.